Okay, I just finished. Just read Party of One: The Rise of Xi Jinping and China's Superpower Future by Chun Wong, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. So it's written by a journalist. Chun Wong is a Singaporean journalist writing for the, I believe it's the Wall Street Times. The Wall Street Journal. The Wall Street Times. So Chun Wong is a Singaporean. He's not Chinese, but he's writing for the Wall Street Journal. So an American journal with an American audience. And this book very much has an American audience in mind. It does cover a lot of stuff besides just sort of China and America, but geopolitically, of course, those are going to be the two big ones. And he is writing in English. He is writing for an American audience. So I went into it trying to with that in mind, realizing that he's writing it for Americans, and sort of what he's saying is going to be what Americans not want to hear. Anyways, so he's a journalist. It is thoroughly like this much of it is just notes, so it is thoroughly researched. He's done his due diligence for sure. And I forget who said it, but journalism is the first draft of history. So this is very much a history book, but for very present time. So it talks about literally the rise of Xi Jinping, and what China is like today, what it has been like in the past 10 years, and so I'm looking forward to the future. So I personally don't know much about China at all, so that's why I grabbed this book. Just randomly saw it and thought, hey, I want to learn about China, modern China, and the Communist Party. So the first chapter is about Xi Jinping himself, about his sort of rise. It's the only sort of biographical part of this book. It's not, the whole book's not just about Xi Jinping. It's about the Communist Party of China now, and how it sort of has become sort of a personality cult surrounding Xi Jinping. But the first chapter is the sort of the biography of Xi Jinping. And the problem with this book and with writing this book is that China is very, very opaque. They have a lot of propaganda. They very strictly control information. So I imagine writing this book was very, very difficult. And the author admits that, and admits what is speculation and what is sort of fact. And he says that sort of we can't really understand where Xi Jinping came from, but I imagine this is sort of the best chapter summary of his life that we could get in the West. And then the second chapter goes right into Xi Jinping sort of taking over the role as sort of the leader of China, and how he sort of cleans house, and his deviation from what had been the norm for the past 20 or 30 years. I guess 20 years at that point. So communist China came under the rule of Chairman Mao Zedong, who sort of led it until his death in 1973, I think it was. And it was very much sort of a cult of personality, where the whole party, the whole country revolved around Mao and Mao thought and whatnot. And when he died, there was a bit of a struggle, but Deng Xiaoping came out on top. Now Deng, he wanted to turn China and the Communist Party away from Mao and Mao's sort of cult of personality, and make, not westernize it, but open China up a bit more, and so to bring sort of more market freedom and more opening China up, and he did so. And then he died one day in 1997, but he had put in place enough sort of stuff that there was kind of a clear succession, and that people after Deng would not serve for more than 10 years. So there was, I don't even remember his name, there was a guy who served for 10 years, then another guy who served for 10 years, and then Xi Jinping came in 2012 or 13, and it was very clear, like the easiest succession ever, but very quickly became clear that Xi is very different than his predecessors. He's harkening back to the days of Chairman Mao and the sort of personality cult, and he's making himself a very important figure in China. So he scrapped the 10-year limit. He's going to rule for presumably for life. He has no clear successor. He has not been grooming anyone to succeed him as of yet. So this chapter is called Gripping Iron and Leaving Marks. So the one thing that he did do is purge a lot of corruption in the Communist Party. So there was a lot of corruption in the bureaucracy and in the party, which he got rid of and dealt with, which was sort of a great thing for everyone. But he also did it in a way that he got rid of his rivals and sort of as a way to consolidate power. The third chapter, Law is Order, is all about how Xi Jinping sees so there is no sort of law in China, no law. There is no law outside of what the party states. So the high-ranking party members can't be held to a law because they're sort of the ones who create the law. It's kind of like l'état c'est moi. I am the Senate. Xi Jinping can't be held to the law because he creates the law. He sort of is the law. And so they've made the law basically to follow the party. And if you're not following the party, then you are not following Xi Jinping, and thus you are destabilizing and causing issues. It's interesting, as this book goes on, like it starts out almost positive, or at least neutral in terms of tone, but by the end of it, and I was reading it as sort of a propaganda piece because it's for an American audience. Like I went into it thinking, okay, they're going to be attacking China and Xi Jinping and the Communist Party, but the first sort of half seemed really neutral. But as the book went on, it got sort of more negative, and it made me feel like actually I don't think what Xi Jinping is doing. I don't think he's a super genius who's fixing China. Like he may be doing some good things, but overall he's like the fact that he sort of has the education of an elementary school person. Like he's never really been educated. If he had a PhD like the Canadian Prime Minister, I would think much better of him. Anyways, that's by the by. The fourth chapter is about the economy and how under Deng Xiaoping in the 80s and 90s, China was opening up, becoming a bit more capitalistic, and the economy was roaring. But now under Xi, he's trying to sort of contain it more and shut it down. And a lot of the companies are sort of state-run, and how, China's sort of becoming more insular again, and sort of scaring away investors and foreign investors, and how foreign investors have to deal with all the political aspects of working in China, that they have to calculate into their bottom line, stuff like that. The fifth chapter is all about propaganda and rewriting history, and using history as sort of a tool to sort of give the party legitimacy and sort of keep China they seem to they're not okay with seeing their past as being a bad thing. So it's called Grasping the Pen Shaft. So the pen is mightier than the sword. Well, they're they're using the pen to sort of rewrite and censor, control history so that it shows them in a good light. Which, I mean, I don't think it's a good thing. You think of places like Canada where we excoriate ourselves and we basically self-flagellate about how awful we were in our past. Maybe that's sort of the opposite extreme. I guess Germany would be another example where I'm sure they're very hard on themselves in terms of I mean, rightly so, but still, just rewriting your past to say that it was so great in the past and we are such a great nation and nothing has ever been wrong. Not nothing has ever been wrong. There have been issues, but they gloss over them and they're sort of they write history as if they're on a path and they've always been on this path and it's the right path and look how far we've come and we've got such a glorious future ahead of us. And the sixth book is all about sort of the Chinese Empire and how they want control of the South China Sea and Tibet and Xinjiang. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. The sort of East Turkestan area with the Uyghur and the Muslim majority people, and how China's sort of basically not neo-colonialism. I mean literally it is neo-colonialism, but they're resettling Han Chinese people out there and they're building islands in the South China Sea and putting military posts on there and yeah, they're not quite expansionist, but expansionist in a way, and like issues with Hong Kong and how Hong Kong was handed back by the British in '97, I think, and how it's sort of being reintegrated into China. And of course the issue of Taiwan, which I hadn't realized. I had always thought that both Taiwan and China were two separate countries. Like I understood the history about Chiang Kai-shek sort of fleeing to Taiwan during the communist revolution and staying there. But I guess at some point the two would have to become distinct nations. But for the most part, the world sort of only recognized Taiwan as the real China until the 70s, I think, when there was like a hard switch where the international community now does not recognize Taiwan as a country, which I had not realized. I thought, well, yeah, it's a country, but they do not. They recognize the mainland China, the People's Republic of China, as the only country, and Taiwan's sort of a breakaway state, which is weird because like Taiwan has never declared its independence. I mean, they're still the People's they are the Republic of China, but I don't know. They're totally self-sufficient. They don't rely like they're geographically cut off. They're economically cut off. They're military. Like to me, Taiwan is its own country, but I guess technically, geopolitically, is not a country right now. So anyway, so that was interesting. So yeah, the whole issue of Taiwan that Xi Jinping and the Communist Party really want total control over. Part of me is like, why do they need it? Like, do they also want control over Mongolia or Singapore? Like, at least Singapore has like Mandarin speakers. I don't know. They just need it for like clout. Anyways, the seventh chapter is an interesting one. This is when it gets into sort of the negatives of more negative view of China. I mean, the sixth chapter as well, but the seventh chapter is about foreign policy and how foreign diplomats are sort of always being aggressive and always have their hackles rise and are sort of always on the attack and viciously defending China, and sort of they see any sort of slight or comment against China, they take it so personally and they just like explode and are just rabid about it, which kind of seems strange to me. It's like a child, a petulant child being like, how dare you say this to me, that's not fair, you can't say that, blah blah blah. Like, just, I don't know, it doesn't seem very dignified or respectful, but they're doing it not because they're personally offended, but for sort of because of their job. So the whole bureaucratic party system and government in China is not merit based. It's not. They all want to advance and get ahead, just like everywhere else in the world. But to do so, it's a lot of sucking up to your boss and a lot of trying to look good in front of others and put others down to make yourself look good, because that's how you get promoted and move up. So they're doing this all just sort of, it's like they have lines in a play that they say these lines, and then yep, you check all the boxes. You said this thing against America, great. You defended China here, great. When they don't, there's no real meaning to it. They're just being really snarky because that's how they get ahead in their career. Which that whole system is also why there's so much corruption and stuff in the system, is because they don't need to actually show results or actually fix things as bureaucrats and ministers. They just have to make it look like they did, and make it their bosses think that they did. Yeah, the whole system seems like a bit of a mess to me. But again, maybe I'm just getting caught up in the propaganda of this book, which is meant for like a Western audience. And then the final chapter is about the future and how Xi has not designated a successor, and how China is so opaque, and the inner workings of the party is a black box that we have no idea what China is going to be like in 10 years. I mean, Xi Jinping is in his 70s, early 70s now. But like 10 years from now, when he's in his early 80s, he might still be running, but eventually he's going to die, and there's going to have to be someone else to take over. And what's that going to look like? And is China just going to continue on with this sort of more stricter, more closed off, more authoritarian state that Xi Jinping has sort of created, or are they going to go back to a more open state like Deng Xiaoping? What's it going to look like next? That's sort of the final chapter. And then the sort of afterword or epilogue is sort of a wrap up, and the author is sort of talking about his own personal journey as a journalist, a Singaporean journalist working in Beijing for an American company, who had his visa revoked and was sort of kicked out of the country because of remarks that he's made. So yeah, an interesting look into China, into modern day China. Like well researched. I mean, I'm not a journalist or a critic. I can't really speak to the quality of it, but I thought it was really good, really insightful. Yeah, so that was Party of One.